United States of America, and to the republic
for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Great. Thank you all very much. The approval of the agenda, we have a couple additions. We need to add member to member request, and we can do that under new business. And we need to add the food service balance, and we will put that under finance with Lewis. So with those,
I make a motion to add them to the agenda.
second
Second.
by Art. All those in favor?
Aye.
Motion passes. General public comments. I know that Heather is here, and she wants to speak to the board. So Heather, this is your opportunity to speak.
Okay. Hi. I'm just calling with concerns about the Black Lives Matter flag. I think the school grounds needs to be a neutral ground, and with that flying up there, it doesn't leave it neutral.
Okay. Was there anything else?
That's pretty much basically my issue, yeah.
Okay. All right. Well, thank you very much for coming and speaking to us and sharing your thoughts with us. We appreciate that. And we will take your comments under advisement.
No, you won't.
Are there any other public on the call wishing to speak?
Can I just add another thing to it too?
Sure.
Is about it. If it is decided that that flag stays up, I feel then we should also raise a flag supporting the police too.
Okay. Well, we will certainly take that under advisement with your other comments.
Okay. So how do I find out anything more, what the results were from this?
So we listened to public comments at a meeting. At the next meeting, we can readdress them. At this point, we're looking at policy and setting policy. And so you could certainly join us at the next meeting to see if it's on the agenda, to see if there's anything to be discussed.
Okay. All right. So that's next month, or when is the next meeting?
Right. The next meeting would be October 19th.
October 19th. Okay. So
Thank
do
you.
I stay on, or what do I do?
You can stay, and we're
Listen?
going to
Okay.
move on with the rest of the meeting, or that's up to you.
Okay. I'll listen
Okay.
for a while and see.
Okay. Thank you.
Yep.
Moving on.
Sorry, Lisa, this is Seth. I have one more comment that came from the public.
Sure.
I'm still getting some comments about the American flag at Polteny High School. I got a comment that by being at half-mast today, it really shows how poor of a condition it's in, and I'm being told it's also still not lit. I cannot personally validate any of those comments, as I haven't taken a peek, but I just thought I'd pass them on in case that's still the case. This would be the third time that I've mentioned it at a meeting. So again, my recommendation is simply verify with protocols. And I think, and also my recommendation has always been, let's make sure we do it every building too, just so
Right.
we know that everything's up to snuff. So
So
I think Joe's ready. Hey Joe, how are you?
So, Joe, did you want to speak to that?
Oh. We part of the reason
So you're really breaking up.
well, is it
We can't hear you at all, Joe.
You did that? Yeah, I haven't. Are you muted? No. Again.
Hey, these other phones have to be muted.
Okay. I'll just hang up then. Maybe that'll make it better.
Okay. Joe, did you want to speak to Seth's comment?
I don't know if this is working or not.
I can't hear you.
Yeah.
Can't hear you. Can we do this, Joe? Can you take a look at the flag, follow up, and make sure that it's lit? And if it needs to be replaced, please replace it. And perhaps send an email to Seth just to confirm one way or the other so he can respond to the individual that contacted him. I know here in Proctor that we started with new flags and our flags are lit in the evening. But yes, and Seth, this is the third time Seth has brought that. I don't know, Jay, did you want to speak to your flag in West Rutland? It's lit, I believe, in the front, isn't it?
It is lit in the front, yes, and there is the flag in the back is taken down each night. So
That's what I thought. Okay, so Joe, if you want to just follow up with Seth, that would be great.
Joe responded, Lisa, in the chat box.
Oh,
Yeah, he said, we just had the trees trimmed on Friday. The light has been ordered. The flag is smaller because it was catching in the branches. And he gave his phone number and then have the person call him instead of going right to the board.
okay. Well, I think it's okay. Seth actually brought it actually the first time, and his request was that as we do reopening for every year, that every building administrator assess, so that as we're starting out a new year, we're starting out everything with fresh and new. So I don't think it was just going right to the board. It kind of started and then has continued on, but thank you. Is there any old business? Seeing none. New business. Is Lisa Matson with us?
Yes, I'm here.
Okay. Would you like to do your presentation?
Certainly. I know it's been shared with you by email as well. I will share my screen, so you should be able to see it briefly just to follow along with me. But I'm not going to go through every slide in detail because I know you've all had a chance to look at them previously. And I think you should be able to see it now. Can everyone see my screen?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay, great. So this is the presentation that I sent to you. We had previously presented this at the GRCSU board meeting last month, and I know that some of you were there as well for that. But we have some updates on our transcript and grading approach. And I know the transcript was referred to this board as it is primarily something that is more high school focused and something that will directly benefit high school students more. And so the GRCSU board felt that it would be more appropriate for this board to weigh in on that conversation. So we do have a transcript mock-up from Infinite Campus that I shared with everyone. It was linked in the original document, and I'll pull it up here as well. So this is something that was developed by members of the proficiency-based grading task force. So the counselors from all three high schools, Jay Slanker, Debbie Rodolfi from Rutland Town, and myself. And so with their input, there are some pieces of the transcript that they really want more personalization in, I think is the best way to explain it. So they see that different students have different needs for transcripts based on what they're doing, which makes a lot of sense with Act 77 and the flexible pathways work that we've been trying to do with all of our students. That some students might want a transcript for employment, some might want it for an internship, some might want it for a college application, different reasons and different purposes at different times. Some may need the information on a transcript for a scholarship application. So all of these things we want to have available if possible. And the model of the transcript that we're looking at had some new sections, added sections. So one of them is just putting the grading key right at the top of the transcript where it says grading system. And that language does not precisely match ours, but it will by the time that we're done working on this, but just to give you a sense of what that would look like. And then on the top right section of the transcript, there's already some information there. That information that's in bold on the left-hand side, that is all currently available. But the things on the right-hand column, GPA, honors status, test scores, SAL/VAL, class size, all of those things are new additions to the transcript. And the way that we'd like to have it programmed is so that these become drop-down menus. So basically, if the student has a need for that information to be on their transcript or would like that information to be on their transcript, then the counselor can check a button and that information will automatically appear. If the student does not want or does not need that information, then it would be blank, so that it wouldn't show up like an empty box. It would just not be there. Then in the middle of the document, you have the list of courses taken. Obviously for us, this looks just slightly different. This is, again, an Infinite Campus mock-up, but it would list the courses they took each year, their overall score on a proficiency-based system, and the weight of the course if it's a half credit or a full credit course. The bottom of the transcript, there are a number of other boxes. The flexible pathways box, that's really for capturing things that a student might have done that go beyond the school day, again, in line with Act 77 and flexible pathways. So has the student done an internship? Have they done work-based learning, an extended learning opportunity? Is there some way that that student has demonstrated proficiency in some area that is outside of their traditional course system? And again, that would either be checked by the counselor and would appear, or would not be checked and would not appear at all, not an empty box. On the right-hand side are two other boxes, one for habits of work and the other for attendance. And again, both of those would be optional boxes. Habits of work, we have some work to do on as a district, but primarily that might benefit a student where their habits of work are excellent, but perhaps their grades are not, and that they don't excel necessarily in academic achievement, but that they have, incredible, personal self-efficacy skills, or they are, your go-to team player, someone who's really responsible, they work really hard. That's where that information might show up. And then for attendance history, similarly, again, sometimes that would be a helpful piece, like an employer in particular might be really interested in someone's attendance in school as an indication of their potential attendance and in a place of employment. Others would not be as interested. And then the current course box in the bottom left, that always appears anyway. That's something that we need to report out on for any college or group that we're trying to send a transcript to, that the student is still currently enrolled in classes, just so they can see what's coming up. I'm going to go just a little bit farther in this presentation, and then I'll come back for questions. Part of the reasons that the group is really interested in a more flexible and personalizable transcript, again, is to meet the needs of many students. There are a number of advantages with this. Currently, many of our counselors are producing sample transcripts that are similar to this, but they have to do all of it by hand. It's a completely manual process. they're creating it in Google Docs and Word templates, and they have to fill it all in by hand. Obviously, that's a lot of work, but it's something that they're doing because they really believe that it best represents their students and their strengths and their skills and unique things about them that make them particularly marketable for opportunities beyond our doors. So being able to do that in an automated way would definitely save them some time. But of course, there's a cost that comes with that. So there is no, currently we have some sample transcripts, and you can see those on the next slide. But in order to produce a transcript like this that has that kind of customizable drop-down buttons all the time, Infinite Campus has given us a quote, and that quote is $10,400. And at the bottom of that the transcript slide, you can link to that cost estimate if you want the detail of it. But the long and the short of it is that they think it's going to take about 50 hours of programming, and they charge about $200 an hour for programming. And that's to make it so that, again, it can either show up at the click of a button or disappear from the transcript at the click of a button. There are some canned transcript options that are currently in Infinite Campus, and I did link those on the next slide so that you can see the difference in what is on the current transcript. And so there are a few from the different schools that are generated automatically by Infinite Campus. I'll pull up West Rutland's just so that you can take a look at it if you haven't already. So it should be loading. So again, this is what currently can come out of Infinite Campus. They do have a few canned programs. So they have some at the top, again, some basic information about the student, the courses that they have taken each year, and the current courses that they're in, and a summary of the credits, and a signature of the official. So pretty bare bones, but it does convey sort of that basic information about a student. There are a few things that you can add to that, but not many, like attendance or things like that, but not very many. So again, I'll just pull up West Rutland as a sample. So there are other kinds of documents that the counselors have created to try to, again, share that full story of our school and our students. So what I have up right now is a West Rutland school profile. This is normally something that would be sent out to accompany a transcript. It gives information about the overall enrollment of the school, a little bit about the community, what courses are available to students. That's something that a lot of colleges in particular want to know, and flexible pathways as well. What the graduation requirements are, how proficiency-based grading works, what our scale is, and then some quick stats on the school, test scores, averages, overall stats on the school and that graduating class, how the honors system works, awards, where other graduates have gone, and extracurriculars. So again, you'll see some overlap there between the transcript and the school profile. So additional information that usually goes out with our students. The other sample that I just would like you to see right now, for just a comparison sake, is the Proctor High School proficiency-based transcript. So again, this is one that was created by the counselor to try to incorporate more of the information that is highlighted for all of us as critical underneath all the work we're doing related to proficiency-based learning and Act 77. So this has the scores at the top and how they are translated or descriptors of them, what the transferable skills and habits of work are, information about the Latin honors system, then of course the courses that the student has taken, and current courses in progress. So again, slightly less information than what is available on the the new transcript mock-up. So I'm going to just stop there for a moment and take any questions that people have, or go back to any sections that people want to look at in more detail.
Lisa, this is Kristen Ross. Just for my notes again, you said the last two things that you showed us were from West Rutland and Proctor, were counselors had designed those themselves? Okay.
Yeah,
thanks.
both the West Rutland school profile and the Proctor proficiency-based transcript.
Thank you.
Hey, Lisa, this is Seth Howard. Question, did I understand you correct that the 10,400, that quote is only if we're looking for customization on the transcripts?
Yes, that's what that would be for. That work would be to add those features that I went over in the first slide, with the sample transcript. So
Okay.
the extra boxes at the top and the ability to completely personalize which ones appear and which ones don't on a given student's transcript.
Okay. Do we have any information about transcript quality or appearance, et cetera, having an effect on college acceptance rate or something the equivalent?
I don't have any data on it, but definitely, you know, you need it to look professional. The counselors take a lot of time to make sure that the documents that they send represent our schools and our students well. So no, I mean, whether they're automatically generated or hand generated, I don't think that has a difference in terms of acceptance, but it does in terms of the amount of staff time needed to create it on the front end.
But didn't I understand that there's, oh, sorry.
I was just going to say, you know, again, sometimes like the human error factor, and we're always trying to make sure that the information that we are putting out there is accurate. So the counselors have to be exceptionally careful, you know, checking, double checking, triple checking when they're pulling information out of a system into a separate kind of document. When the system generates it, of course, they're careful and they double check it, but you know that your error rate is going to be much lower because it's automatically generated.
But did I understand? So I thought I understood that the 10,400 was for a custom, anything we want, leather seats and heated seats option, whereas without that cost, there's still going to be automatically generated transcripts coming from Infinite Campus. They just might not, they might only have wheels and an engine.
That's a apt metaphor. Yes, currently Infinite Campus is capable of producing a canned transcript. You don't get to choose what part goes on it. There are, I think, 3 different templates that are pretty similar. And they go on to, they can run right now. The pre-programmed transcript has additional pieces to it that we think are important, or that the counselors would have to provide in another way anyway, because they're so frequently requested by admissions officers.
Okay, yeah, Phyllis is saying here that there's a canned one that does not show the current courses. Were there any that may have?
Yeah, I'm sorry. I just wanted to point that out because in the one that we produced and the one that Infinite Campus mocked up for us, it does show the current courses, but the current Infinite Campus canned transcript will not show current courses. We will send an attached schedule of the students. It's just nicer to have it on the transcript.
Sure.
I just wanted to point that out, that it's not, the canned one doesn't have that ability.
So is there only one standard canned Infinite Campus transcript, or are there a few different?
There's
you
a
can
few
have this,
different
you can have this, but customization equals extra.
Exactly. There's a few different things you can put. Tracy at Pulteney can put the attendance. I do not, Proctor doesn't put the attendance. That's one of them, but it's not, it isn't, when we moved to proficiencies, the Infinite Campus did not really work for the MPs and the EPs. It isn't a good looking transcript. And typically I will get phone calls from admission counselors and do more verbal explanations and additional letter writing.
Yeah, okay. Yep.
And additional work.
Which is absolutely extra work and extra costs and all of that stuff too. Okay, so that's really helpful information. Thank you.
You got it.
Lisa, can I ask a question? The expense that you're talking about, that's a one-time expense.
Yeah,
Okay.
one-time programming expense. Yeah, and
So
then
the
if we change it moving forward, we would contract them at an hourly rate to
All right,
do it.
so the expenditure this year, if you start to add up the number of seniors that we have, which would be somewhere in the neighborhood of about 100, I'm just guessing, would be about $100 for each senior. And as we move into year 2, it would be $50 for each senior, so on and so forth. So the expenditure, if you start to project it into the future, the overall expenditure is fairly inexpensive to provide a standardization amongst all 3 high schools.
Thanks, Bob.
And at this point, we're looking for $7,400 because we have found $3,000 that we can apply towards this as it falls under an enrichment protocol. So the motion this evening, should that be the direction of the board, would be for $7,400.
That's great. Great news.
Are
Is there a
any other
general
questions?
consensus? Sorry, somebody please speak.
No, I was just going to say, does anyone else have any other questions or clarifying? Or I know Phyllis is on. I don't know if there are other guidance counselors on that wanted to speak to this.
Or Jay, I don't know if you want to say anything either. I think Tracy couldn't make it tonight. I wasn't sure about
Okay.
Lauren.
Yeah, I
Or
guess my
Billy?
last question is just curious about anybody who, any of the admins, et cetera, just give us your opinion as whether or not you're really into those bells and whistles, or if you think a canned ham will work, and just because obviously that definitely, we take that into consideration.
So I'd like
Presentation counts. And when you're putting together something as comprehensive as this, I think it's important not only for the standardization, but also in the presentation. I think Lisa was being somewhat kind. I know a few admission personnel, and they go through literally hundreds and hundreds of transcripts. And they certainly appreciate the ones that have been customized and put together in a very symptomatic and systematic, easily read format. So I think presentation does count. And it's a minimal expenditure that initially seems like a little bit, but if you project it over the next few years, it really is a phenomenal expenditure.
And I'll jump in. I followed Bob for a decade now. It's hard to follow him, but he is wise beyond his years. So I have nothing to say other than I agree with what Bob has presented.
I just have a question, Lisa.
Quick question. Oops, sorry. Sorry, Kristen, I cut you off. I just had a quick question about the habits of work. It looks like in the other versions, am I right that it doesn't often come up on the transcript, the habits of work?
Yeah, and we're still having some conversations about that. I think right now in our district, different schools are using different habits of work, and ultimately Act 177 requires us, Act 77 requires us to report out on transferable skills, which are very similar and usually embedded in habits of work, but it doesn't necessarily say how we have to do that. So we have some further conversation we need to have. We're actually going to be putting together a committee, a cross-district committee, to talk about habits of work and see what we can come up with together as a consistent approach to that work and the transferable skill work. So it may not be something that we report out on immediately, but again, you have those more exceptional students where habits of work is really going to highlight their strengths in a way that is not done necessarily in their academics. So finding some way, official way to highlight that for them might be really important for some individual kids.
Yeah, I actually really like that feature, especially for kids who are applying for internships or work while they're still in high school. Those could be really powerful for an employer to see. So I think that would be a great addition. Thanks.
And Lisa, this is Kristen Ross. I was just going to ask, have we looked at other companies besides Infinite Campus in terms of cost comparison? I know we're using Infinite Campus, so I know we kind of want to go with that, but are there other companies out there that would do sort of a one and done deal that we could work with, or would that just be so not feasible?
Yeah, no, we haven't even done that in part because Infinite Campus is a system of record for our students. So say a student graduates now and in 7 years, they come back to us and they say, I need you to generate a transcript for me for a job. And believe it or not, that actually happened to me when I moved to Vermont. I had to go back and get a copy of my high school transcript from Connecticut, which I don't think I'd ever had a copy of legitimately in my own hands up until that point. And it was more than 7, that's all I'll say, more than 7 years after I graduated from high school. So in that case, you need an information system that has that as a record. And if we do transfer information systems at any point in the future, part of that transfer would be downloading all of that information and saving it very carefully so that you always have a permanent record for that student. So no, we did not look at any other systems because that is our system of record. And that's where all of the students' final grades are uploaded. It seems to me the more systems we get talking to each other or trying to talk to each other, the more complex some of those things become. So if the board requests us to do that, we could go back and look at it, but it's not something we would recommend at this time.
Okay, thanks. Just wanted to check. And Lisa Miser, do we know where did the other 3,000 come from again? I thought you had said that. I just want to make sure I have it in the notes.
From an enrichment opportunity that we have.
Okay, thanks.
And I think when I know here in Proctor, when we first went with Infinite Campus, one of the bonuses as we first looked at it and used it rather bare bones was the opportunity that we had to build it out and make it more our own. When we purchased it, we knew that it was a program or a platform that was, could go into any school, but that was our responsibility as we moved along, and particularly as we've merged now, to see what our needs are based on our uniqueness of all of our schools. And so, I think this has always been a plan in Proctor, even before we merged, that eventually, and West Rutland, when we were, a prior organization, to start to build this out to make it more beneficial and have show our students in a much more beneficial light. I think we'll see that maybe a bit more at the SU meeting this week. I think Greg is going to give a presentation about building out additional modules that are more across all buildings without regard to basically just high schools, which we're talking about now, but a manner in which parents could perhaps have more opportunity to see grades and scores and things like that, which right now, unless you request that information, it's not available to you. So I think we're in pretty deep with this platform. And before we selected this, we had a committee within our own SU that looked at, and teachers, and I believe, Christy, correct me if I'm wrong, but that we even tried different platforms to see which would be the most beneficial.
Yes. Sorry.
So articulate.
To the point, Bob, unlike yourself.
Now, let me respond to that.
Uh-oh, they're tired. Hold on. Time out.
Are there any more questions or comments for Lisa's presentation? What would be the pleasure of the board this evening? Are you interested in expending $7,400 to start this path, or are you in need of additional information, or do you simply have no interest?
I think we need to nail down the habits of work section before we officially kind of contact them and start working hours, but I really love the idea of expanding Infinite Campus.
Just to interject again, sorry, this is Phyllis. I think the habits of work was going to be a pull down menu, if I'm correct. So we could still move forward with Infinite Campus if that's our choice while we're working on the habits of work decisions across the SU. Just because it's going to take a little while if we do say yes to IC, we're still looking at a few months of work. And I was hoping to have my admissions transcripts sent out by I was hoping for November 15th. I know that's not happening, but I know I can do the second mid-year reports January if we were to start the process.
Thanks, Phyllis.
So what's the pleasure of the board?
Oh, my opinion. I have no interest in it right now, due to funding and everything we've spoke about the last few months. And I think it should be something that could be touched on again next year.
Okay. So am I to take from no comments that the board is passing on this?
This is Art. I feel we should continue, go ahead with it. It seems like we got quite a bit of information already, and to just stop it right now, I think it's a mistake. I feel we should continue going ahead with it.
I'm sorry, guys. I got cut off and bad connection. Showed up and heard the end of Lisa's comment and some of Art's comments. And can someone just quickly catch me up?
So what is your, we're doing, what is the?
Oh no. Oh no.
We can still hear you, Seth.
Yeah, well, that's good. It means it's not totally done, but I lost
Okay.
you again.
Oh,
All right, let's try again.
okay. So we're trying to find the feeling of the board if you would like to go forward and expend $7,400 for this transcript update, or if you are choosing to pass on it at this time.
From my position, I'm okay to move ahead with it, but we'll see what the rest of the board feels like.
I agree. I say move ahead with it.
So does someone want to make a motion? And
Yeah, you want me to
see-
throw that? So I'll go ahead and make the motion to approve the 7,400 investment for Infinite Campus for transcript refining purposes.
This is Art, and I will second the motion.
All those in favor?
Aye.
So why don't I do this, because I think there will be some perhaps not in favor. I'll just call your name. Is everyone okay with that? So I'm going to start with Seth,
Yes, I am in favor.
Kristen Whitman,
Yes, I'm in favor.
Tom,
Yes.
Artie,
Yes, I'm in favor.
Kristen Ross,
No.
Jim Mumford. Jim? Okay. Nate,
No.
Sarah?
Yes.
So, did Jem leave the meeting?
Did you ask Tom?
Yes, Tom said yes.
It looks like Jim's still on. Jim, in
Okay.
order to unmute, it's *6.
Jem?
Hello?
Jim, are you, we had a motion to approve $7,400 for the Infinite Campus transcript update. And we're voting. And would you like to vote yes or no for that?
I vote no.
Okay. So that is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 yes, and 3 no. So motion passes to move forward with the $7,400 for Infinite Campus transcript update. Thank you. Thank you, Lisa, for your work.
Thank you, everyone, for the opportunity to come present this to you tonight. Please keep me posted, especially those who voted no. If there's something that I know the cost is substantial, and in a year like this, it's tricky to say yes to things like this. But we feel, kids are graduating right now, so despite the hardship, how do we best support them? But if there are other things that we could bring forward or share with you or talk further with you about in the future to help you to feel like this is a great investment, a great decision, then please let us know, and we'll continue to bring that to you.
Thank you.
Thanks, Lisa.
Athletic contract unification. Joe, are you on? Joe Harrington?
Yep, can you hear me?
Yes, I can.
Okay. So I made the changes that needed to be made from the last time we met, and in my opinion, it's good to go.
Okay.
Now I'm trying to remember what those changes were.
So
I think
one
it was
of the
just really changing all the wording to say Quarry Valley Unified School District was one of them. I think we go ahead. I'm sorry.
The other piece, another big piece was that the eligibility and eligibility check was unified across the schools. So particularly, I guess, with proficiency, it seems like maybe the mechanism or method we should be using perhaps is simply habits of work for an eligibility check.
Right. So the other change I made was making the dates similar. I know that was one of them. So we're all checking at the same time and the same times of year. And then the third was making the how we go about deciding consistent throughout the district, which again with Pulteney we can't do because they're still using the numerical system, but we were able to combine West Rutland and Proctor's to be habits of work.
Okay. All right. Are there any questions for Joe? And once again, I mean, this document, it can always be amended or changed at any time if something changes, or even next year
working document.
Right, when Pulteney goes, changes their system. So, and sadly, at this point, who even knows how much weight it holds as we move forward in this sport year?
Unfortunately, yes.
So what is the pleasure of the board? Is there a motion?
Let's move forward with it. Let's move forward with it. I make a motion. I make a motion to accept it and move forward with it.
Second. Great, thank you. Motion by Jim, second by Tom. All those in favor?
Aye.
Hi.
Any opposed? Passes unanimously. Everyone received the August 11th minutes in your packet. Thank you very much, Kristen. A motion would be in order to approve.
Just a real
I
quick
make a motion.
I think my name was on the attendee list. I was not in attendance.
Yeah, and that was Shauna actually who
Oh,
did those.
I'm
She
sorry.
was still there.
Okay.
Yep. All right, so fix Seth. Seth will fix you on
And that was
those.
the only thing I could notice.
Seth was not there. Okay.
All right. So a motion to approve removing Seth.
I'll make the motion. Nate Slentz.
And second,
Whitman, I'll second it.
all those in favor?
Aye.
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 Great. Motion
Aye.
passes unanimously. Warrants were you received the warrants in your email. If there are questions, you should contact Lewis. With that in mind, could I have a motion to approve the warrants?
Can I make a motion to? What was the $1,700 for a sprayer?
I'll second.
I'm sorry, Tom. $1,700 for a sprayer. Was that your question?
Yeah. Yep.
Lewis, are you on the meeting?
I am on the meeting, yes.
Do you happen to have
I mean,
any idea?
I'm not sure of that specific question, but I know that there was several schools that purchased electrostatic sprayers due to COVID. There are machines that you can spray doorknobs and many of the surfaces in the buildings, and it kills all the bacteria very quickly. It makes it easy and efficient to clean.
Would that be a recompensable if it's COVID related?
Yes, many of the purchases all of the purchases regarding those sprayers were put into the CRF funds.
Okay. Is it possible you could just follow up on that and email Tom sometime this week?
Lisa, I can jump in also to help Tom's question. That I believe that is for the West Rutland School. It was $1,700. It is a backpack electrostatic sprayer, as Lewis described, and we did bill it back through the COVID.
Okay. Thank you.
Thanks, Jay.
Yep.
With that, are you good with that, Tom?
I'm good.
Okay. So a motion to approve the warrants?
I make the motion.
I'll second.
And second by Nate. All those in favor?
Aye.
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 Great. Motion passes unanimously. Superintendent's report, Chris.
Lisa, before I begin, do we want to discuss member-to-member agreement back on our new business?
Oh, I'm sorry, Carson. I had that written down too. Well, would you want to share that?
Yeah, I'll kind of just briefly, even though this is a Proctor High School, Bob was not around when this began, so I'll kind of just discuss this. So we have a family at Proctor who would like their children to play football at Otter Valley. While we know that there is a football program, obviously at Polteny High School, due to travel times, family considerations, they were looking to have their children play football at Otter Valley just because of proximity and just, to hardship. They have no way of transporting their kids to Polteny. And so, I explained, at least I think, bring it to the board for their approval, but I would like to also see if the board would like to kind of render their thoughts on member-to-member agreements from a Quarry Valley perspective, just for future reference, just so we're not doing this on case by case. If we want to just go one way or another in support of these, or just saying that's since we have programs within our Quarry Valley that in order to support the unification that we move forward with that. So.
Thoughts from the board?
Chris, in a case like that, is there a cost associated to Quarry Valley by them doing that? And if so, just a real rough idea what that could cover, or sorry, what those costs would be from.
The only cost that we would possibly incur is if we would try to provide transportation for a student moving from one location to another, which we cannot do. Just from a logistics standpoint, just time of the day and just go, getting transportation for one or two students doesn't make sense for us. So I know that when I spoke with Joe Harrington, this does have the blessing of the VPA. The VPA pushes it back down to the local schools to make a decision. Otter Valley is fine. I know Polteny High School, both ADs are fine, building principals are fine. But it really boils down to, I guess the standard, and Joe Harrington can kind of correct me if I'm wrong, but basically that we've, I guess, shown our due diligence to provide, that make a reasonable accommodations. But in this particular case, just with the transportation, the family feels it's just not possible for their children to play at Polteny High School. So there is no cost that we incur.
Right. So no equipment cost or anything like that. We don't need to.
No, if there is an equipment fee that the family would pay that. So like if a school would charge, whatever, that would be on the family to pay for that. It would not be us.
Okay. Thanks.
Yep.
Chris, if I could just, this is Kristen Whitman. I guess it feels a little weird to have this idea of, I guess you called it a member to member, that anyone who wanted to play somewhere else could, especially when we aren't at this time. I mean, students attending a different school, whether it's they or in Proctor if they wanted to attend Polteny, or if they were in West Rutland if they wanted to attend Proctor. We don't even have that as an option, never mind, the flexibility. And I know sports are different, but it feels a little odd to me that we don't have that flexibility, and then we would allow students to go and play sports at different places. But that's just my thought.
This is a VPA, rule in a sense in terms of this member. And I think it's something was in existence before the unification took place.
And if your home school does not have the sport.
Right.
So it's not like a Proctor student can go play basketball for Polteny. Proctor does not have a football team, so therefore there's student choice member to member. That's the big thing.
Right, but the member to member extends to school districts outside of ours?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay. All right, thanks.
There's a whole, the VPA has a whole procedure on the member-to-member thing. I was on the committee when we redid it. I think Joe was still on the committee too. We tried to keep it, the first thing has got to stay in district, and that's one of the reasons, even though Otter Valley's 5 minutes away from Proctor, they got to stay in district first, and then they got to stay in county first. So people aren't driving by. We've had kids that say, I want to play soccer at Fairhaven. It's like tough. You have to go to West Rutland and play if that's, that's the way I remember to member with.
Yeah, that is correct. You have to look within district first. And if there's a reasonable reason why you can't, which, driving from Proctor to Polteny is quite a haul, then you have the option to go outside of district if it's a reasonable request.
This is Kristen Ross, and this isn't specific to this case, this case by case. And I know, Chris, you want us to sort of weigh in generally too about this kind of situation. And I'm just going to go back. This is not helpful comment at all. So I apologize in advance, but this is part of the reason I still don't get the Act 46 merger not being geographically inclined, because how are we not going to have this all the time, right, in the future? And where's the fine line? Like if you live 2 minutes from Otter Valley, if you live 7 minutes from Otter Valley, if you live 4.5 minutes, like where is the line? And I totally get it for that particular family. Just play football where you can actually get to. But it goes back to merger issues that it just geographically does not make sense that Polteny merged with a school that's like 40 minutes away. So I mean, nothing, there's nothing personal. I'm glad we're all a team. I love working with everybody, but just the logistics of it is ridiculous, frankly. And so I don't know how you avoid even taking class to, talking about academics too, which we still have yet to try to attempt in some way. So I know we're working towards that, but it's frustrating for me that, and that's none of our fault. It has to do with how the act was put together, but it's just frustrating.
What about, and this, it's going to get complicated and cumbersome to try to word something like this, but I'm wondering if our policy, I'm imagining a policy where we say, yes, we definitely want to keep it in district unless there's an alternative that is the adjacent school district to where they're living in, when the in-district option is not adjacent to where they're living in.
So the difficulty with that is, for instance, we do have schools that are closer to, let's say, West Rutland, be it Mill River and MSJ. And if you put that in there, then that would possibly be problematic because they are closer schools than Poultney. And our preference is to send kids to Poultney if we can.
Gotcha. Okay. Good feedback.
So on
really
this,
the only situation you're going to come across right now is football, that I can think of at the moment. But it is something to decide in the future how we want to go about doing this. That's for sure.
Yeah, we had a student last year play field hockey at Fairhaven because obviously West Rutland and Proctor don't have field hockey. So that's when you can go out of district as well if the schools don't offer the sport.
so for this instance, for this family, 2 students, what is the pleasure of the board to allow them or not allow them to travel to Otter Valley to play football? And could that be in the form of motion, please?
I got a question. With this COVID stuff going on and him going up to play football with another school,
So member to member is still allowed under COVID, because we are still being tested within our home schools. Does that make sense? For instance, if we have 3 kids right now who are playing football at Poultney, when they come to school in the morning, they're temperature checked and they go through all the protocols and they're going directly to Poultney, and they are considered checked.
Okay.
Well, that could be a problem too if West Rutland kids are not, I don't want to say forced, but they have to go to Poultney. If we allow these kids to go to Otter Valley, they might say, "Hey, I want to go to Mill River. I want to go to MJ. I want to go to Rutland."
Yeah. Or Poultney kids want to go to Granville in New York State.
Right. Well, and as it is now, you do have to look within your own district. I mean, your first option, the first thing you have to do is stay within your own unified district, unless there are circumstances that are reasonable enough to go outside your district. So you wouldn't have that option necessarily to a Poultney kid to go to Fairhaven unless there are extenuating circumstances.
They didn't have a
have to go to Proctor, or they would have to go to Proctor or West Rutland, a Poultney kid.
What if they say they couldn't supply transportation? That's what we're being told.
The member to member, schools are not required to provide transportation. That is something.
I get that. I'm just saying that the excuses that anybody can use is I can't supply transportation to that school, and then the public is way.
Right. And the problem is the distance between Proctor and Poultney. That is the problem. And it's not problem. Even if they could provide transportation, it is a 45. I'm going to guess a 45, 50-minute drive from Proctor to Poultney. You couldn't get out of school and get over there in time to attend practice, regardless of who was driving.
Which actually is an interesting point, in my opinion, Joe.
Yep.
The fact that that's true, right? That so this now the Otter Valley option is an option which allows the student, which allows the student to have an uninterrupted academic day.
Well, for the most
Whereas
part, yes.
there would either be an academic disturbance or an athletic disturbance, which then I would even guess that a coach, for example, would have no real grounds to stand on for disciplining this player for being, let's say, 15 minutes less in practice every single day. But it is also going to create inner strife within the team. I don't know.
And that's the potential. Like for the 3 kids I have going to Pulteney to play football, it does not interrupt their school day, and they do arrive a little late for practice. Not real late, but they do arrive late to Pulteney for practice. But there's really nothing we can do about that except for letting them leave early during the academic day, which we would never do.
Right. And we have to, in fact, encourage acceptance of being late because you get them rushing in disaster strikes too.
And we are fine with that too. We know that they're going to be late. And we understand that, and they don't have to run extra laps because they're late, and the teammates are fine with that too.
What about like not to say, not to throw anything out there because I know Pulteney's going to have a good year, but say 2-3 years down the road, Pulteney's football's not any good and Otter Valley's a powerhouse. Maybe some West Rutland kids say, no, I'd rather go to Otter Valley to play football, not Pulteney, because it's closer.
And that's part of the reason we redid the whole member-to-member thing is because on the other side of the state, you had kids like Oxbow struggling to have a football team, and you had kids from neighboring schools that were either going down to Hartford or they're going up to St. Johnsbury because those are 2 Division I teams that have good programs, and Oxbow was struggling to have a team. And the whole thing for member-to-member is trying to get, help other teams that, Hartford and St. Johnsbury didn't need players, but they took them because why not? You can never have enough players in football.
Exactly.
But
right, and that is the other. Right, that is the other thing to take into consideration is if you have a full complement of players, you cannot accept players. So if you, Rutland does not accept players from outside of district at all, regardless. That is their policy. I cannot necessarily send kids to Otter Valley to play football if they have a full complement of players. So it also depends. The school you're sending to, for the most part, really can't be a powerhouse for the most part. Those things that do come into play also.
Okay, say they're not a powerhouse, they're just going to be really good. I'm just, this is always going to, we're always changing stuff here. If this is, you're supposed to play for Pulteney, you play for Pulteney. I mean.
Well, and that's fine. I mean,
They could say they want to go to Mill River or go to MSJ or that's a lot closer than Pulteney.
Right, and what I've had players I've had families who said, well, we don't want to go to Pulteney. We want to go to Mill River. And I have just simply said, no, that's not an option. You have to go to Pulteney. They have not challenged, nobody has challenged that up to this point because that is what you're supposed to do. You are supposed to stay in district unless there are extenuating circumstances, which are up to the eye of the beholder.
In my opinion, they have extenuating circumstances. Who knows what the football team is going to be like or the season's going to be like even this year. I say let the kid play at Otter Valley. I mean, it's not realistic for a 45-minute to 50-minute drive every day down to Pulteney. It's not like the kid's trying to pull something over. I feel we should let the kid play.
I want to get moving forward on this. I'm going to make a motion to let the kid play football at Otter Valley.
I'll second it.
All those in favor?
Yes. Aye.
Any opposed?
Yes, Tom.
Tom is opposed.
Kristen Whitman opposed.
Okay. Everyone else is in favor.
I think, Lisa, I'm just going to abstain from this one. I'm not able to make a decision tonight, unfortunately, and I apologize for that, everyone.
Okay.
Yeah, it's just for this one child, right? It's not gonna.
It's actually two students. They're in the same family. They have played their entire football career at Otter Valley. So it's not like they just randomly selected
Yeah,
Otter
yeah.
Valley.
But we're not making a policy that this is
Right.
just for this one's. Okay. Yep.
Right. And we can discuss that and maybe think about what you'd like this to look at like moving forward.
So I'm sorry, actually, with that, Lisa, did they just move into Proctor,
No,
or
they have
they've
lived here their entire lives.
and okay, and for the previous every year that they've asked, they got it.
They are just now in high school, so they didn't have to ask prior.
Okay, gotcha. Like Pee Wee's was with the Otter Valley Clan and stuff. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
All right, so I have everyone in favor with the exception of Tom and Kristen Whitman and Seth abstaining. With those votes, the motion passes and they will be allowed to play at Otter Valley for this season. So if they want to come back for next year, they'd have to come back to the board again. All right, superintendent's report.
Okay, I'll be quick tonight. So I know we have a lot of stuff to get through still. So I just have a couple things just to touch upon with the school reopening. First of all, I just want to talk about the first, we're in our third week now, so a lot longer than that. Has been gone relatively well. It's been much smoother than I think a lot of us anticipated. I know when we were putting together our plans during the course of the summer, it was all theoretical. And so we thought we had a good plan in place, for our students. And as we're starting to see these plans kind of play themselves out, I think we actually have a learning model which is best for our kids. I think it takes their needs in mind, considering just where they're at, and has done a great job with addressing individual concerns. The concern that we have obviously is just with the anxiety and stress that has been placed upon our teachers. And I think I want to commend our teachers. Just as they did in the spring. They did a fantastic job quickly mobilizing and getting things ready to go in the springtime. They did the same thing this week. We had 5 days of professional development, which is kind of afforded by the late start, Labor Day weekend. And during those 5 days, Lisa, Madison, and the instructional coaches and the building administrators put together a great PD for our staff to really kind of get them, pushed in the right direction. But regardless, they put in, the teaching staff put in a ton of hours, a ton of time into making this work. And I think the success that we've had thus far, knock on wood, has been due a large part to our building administrators and our teachers. And I just want to commend them and thank them for all their hard work. Many thankless hours. I know that our admins did not have a summer off. That worked straight through. And I know that they were coming off an exhaustive spring. And so it's tough. But like I said, with the reopening, things are going relatively well. We are currently still in step 2. And I bring that up because, the state has not decided to move us to step 3 yet. In our call last week with Dan French, he did say that tomorrow he will be making a decision where we should have more information in terms of what things will look like in terms of the timeline for step 3. We anticipate that within the next week or so, that we'll be moving on to step 3. The move to step 3 does not necessarily trigger that 5th day coming back. I think that's something which, the building administrators, the teachers, we're going to kind of see where we're at. And if we move into step 3, we will make sure that we cautiously move into that 5th day with that, of in-person instruction. But like I said, that's something which I know that a lot of, particularly within the West Rutland, Poultney, and Proctor, the move to stay in step 2 caused a lot of concern this past week because it did mean that athletic events have been pushed back another week, which I think once we can get those under the way, I think some of our kids will start to feel a little bit better about things. I think they just want to get out there and just compete and play because that is an important part of a lot of our kids' experiences here at our schools. So yeah, I mean, it's really about it. Just right now, like I said, everything's ready to go. We have plans in place moving forward. The question that I've been asked repeatedly is, if we move into step 3, will the remote learning model go away? As of right now, we have no plans on removing the remote learning aspect of our plan. I think it's, considering, where we're at with the pandemic, that there's no vaccine in place, we don't know what the future's going to hold. think it's important for us to continue with that and keep that remote learning plan in place. So we will still be offering in-person and remote learning regardless of step 2 or step 3.
I agree with that.
So.
Okay, does anyone have any questions for Chris?
I have a question that maybe, I don't know if we want to take now or after the other building administrators talk about if they're going to mention anything specific from their reports, but I just have a general question about how you feel special ed services have been administered or executed in the first couple weeks. I know it's really early still, but that's just a concern I've been hearing, even with, we're mostly in school, but we have one day where we're not. And so I just wanted your sense from your IAs and teachers, and then also from central office folks, how they are picturing it feeling like it's going okay. Are there a lot of issues we need to address? Those kinds of things.
I can speak.
Could we do this? Could we have, can we go, after you speak, Chris, go around and have building principals speak to that? We received their reports in the packet, and this might be a little more pertinent rather than just regurgitating the report.
Sure. I could just let the building admins I have no problem talking real quick. I think Kristen, special education, the modification, those had some big concerns after last spring, just in terms of what that model looked like and whether or not all the accommodations were being met. And I know that over the course of the summer, the admins, Christine Cam, Kimberly Stedman, we met a lot to discuss what this might look like. And I think, is it perfect? No, I think there definitely room for improvement. We're consistently meeting, I meet with Christine and Kimberly on a daily basis about what things we're going to look like, what we need to do better, how we can best meet the needs of our kids. I think that's important for us to continually, revisit our plan and, let's see, because I know that the remote aspect for some of our students, some of the modifications or accommodations may not be being met. And so therefore we have to quickly address what does that look like? Because our goal is, no matter what the model is, that every student receives the best quality education that they're entitled to. And we knew that last spring that wasn't the case just because of the complexity of it. But we also know that moving into this fall that we're not, we don't have that same luxury or excuse, that we have to make sure that we're providing the services and the accommodations that we need. So it is something we are concerned about, something we're addressing with the IAs right now. We're trying to make sure that we utilize them properly. And I say that because there has been some concern about, lunch duties and the beginning of the school screenings. So we have to make sure that that every staff member is being used for what their intended purpose is, and not just being plugged in to fill gaps. But it's, where is there room for improvement? Yes, 100%. But it's something which we meet on a daily basis. I have a meeting tomorrow. We'll talk about this as well, about what we need to do. So.
All right, why don't we just
better
go?
Was today. Yep.
Yeah. Why don't we go around with building administrators, and if everyone could just share their thoughts on Kristen's question. So we'll start with Jay.
Sure. Chris said it very well. I know that when we look at what is happening on Wednesdays, both the regular educators and the special educators are very keen as to what they're having the students do, to be perfectly honest. You've got them for a half a day. You've got to make sure that it's pertinent and relevant, and they really have been over the last 2 weeks making sure that they are engaging with the students. I actually would compliment our staff on doing a very good job in kind of an all hands on deck approach to this. As Chris said, is there room for improvement? Yes. And that's something that the hardest part is you may have a student who is nonverbal on the other end of the computer screen, and you're trying to engage that student in a very awkward way over the computer, and those present some challenges, and that's why the special educators and giving direction to the para educators is so important. It is a challenge. It's a relevant challenge nationwide.
Christy?
I agree with both what Chris and Jay have said. For Proctor Elementary School, we're down a special educator as well, so we have a vacancy, which is really problematic. But I will say, I feel it's definitely a case-by-case situation in terms of needs for special education. I feel all my students' needs are being met. Some spots are a little tricky with the remote piece. However, I feel that we need to continue providing services in the remote environment in case we were to go 5 days a week remote. Like it's easy to just say we're not doing remote for those students. We'll give them more services Monday, Tuesday, Thursday, Friday. But in reality, if we go back to remote, we still need to teach the students and their families how to receive those services. So we're continuing to provide services remotely on Wednesday just to continue those practices in case we go back to that situation where we're 5 days a week. Is it challenging? Absolutely. It's challenging, I think, in terms of students if they have multiple needs where, my job, I think, is to protect all students and protect my staff as well. So there's presents many challenges when we're looking at specific needs of individual students. However, I'm fairly confident in what we're doing in our building, and I do feel we're meeting the needs and providing free and appropriate public education for our students.
Kristen?
Hi. Yeah, I would agree with what everyone else has said. I do think, what Chris mentioned about using people where they are meant to be used, that's always an issue, just given the design of the day this year. But we have been lucky enough to secure community volunteers to help us with duties so that kids are getting the services as they're supposed to. Mr. Slantz is one, so thank you, Mr. Slantz.
You bet. Anything I can do to help. I know you guys are having a rough time with staffing.
But yeah, I think the teachers, special educators and general ed teachers together are working very hard trying to fit everything in and do it when it best meets the kids' needs, because all times during the day is not best for everyone. So they're trying to figure it out and merge schedules and yeah.
Okay, thank you. Bob?
Yeah, I would agree with most everything that's been said, but there's a real dichotomy here, and by that I mean when I walk into the general education classes, I see a real synthesis of technology and overall instruction, almost a seamless transition from both the remote instruction to the in-class instruction. And it is very impressive. And I made mention of that in the report to the board in the section regarding science. It's a real challenge, a real challenge with special education students. What everybody has said is so valid. And you will see the struggle from time to time in dealing with remote students. We have 21 remote students. Of those 21, 2 of them are special education students. And it's a real challenge for the special education students to meet the needs of these children. There is no substitute for the teacher, okay? That's the bottom line. And you don't have the ability to have all of the nuances that you can pick up when you have in-person instruction, when you have it done remotely. And it is no more apparent than when you're dealing with a special education child, because their responses are so nuanced that it's very, very difficult sometimes to discern where they are having the difficulties. And so I think the special education teachers are doing the best work that they can. The paras that are working with them are doing the best work that they can. It's a struggle, and I would be the first one to admit it. The gen eds, seamless instruction, I have to tell you, it's so impressive watching them actually perform in the classroom remotely with their students. I think Christy said it, and there were some comments mentioned about students who have language deficiencies, some students who are autistic, some students that have significant behavioral issues. These are extremely difficult to deal with remotely. And so, you know, I think it would be best if all these children were in the classrooms, but they're not. And we're doing the best we can with what we have. Okay? But that's my report, Lisa.
Thank you. Joe?
Yeah, I don't think I can follow up Bob any better than what he said, but I agree with what everyone's saying, and like I was going to say it, that our SPED teachers and the IAs are doing the best they can with the hand that they've been dealt. So, yeah, not much else to add to what everyone else has been saying.
All right, thank you. Did anyone have any questions for any of the building administrators with respect to the reports that they submitted?
No, I guess I would have a question, Kristen. Did that kind of jive with? I don't think your question came from nowhere, and did your responses kind of jive with what you've been hearing, or not necessarily lining up? I mean, I'm somewhere, so I don't think it's new news to anybody in this group, but I'm a special ed parent as well, and there are bumps in the road. I mean, there's nowhere near the bumps in the road that we had basically the entire time last year in the spring, but there are definitely still bumps in the road, and I actually don't have, so in my particular case, I don't have the feeling that anybody's dragging their feet. You know, I don't get that feeling. I don't really think that's going on. The end result doesn't necessarily mean that I'm fully satisfied with where we are, a couple weeks in. And I just really want, I want to make sure that there is a very, 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 very reflective attitude that's happening, because honestly, the vast majority of everything I've heard since we went into COVID is all thanks everybody for stepping up, thanks everybody for stepping up, thanks everybody for stepping up. I'm sure they're happening. I haven't been involved in too many of them, but I haven't heard a lot of conversations that said, yeah, everybody did pretty well, but we definitely got a lot of improvements to make, and we got to do a lot of things differently. And I just want to make sure that's the focus that the folks have. And I would even be someone who advocates that, like you talked about moving into step 3, that maybe there's some potential plans for almost even a staggered to 5 days, and we do something like consider special ed as priority 1 for getting back in the building more time or more often. Again, obviously everybody can make a choice to just stay home because that's what they feel are safe. But perhaps if there's a limited number of people in the building as well, more of the students in need will feel more comfortable being there as well. And so that's just a little bit of some of the thinking I've been having over the past number of months. And don't misunderstand. I'm not at all sitting here either saying, darn it, this is terrible. Not what I'm saying. I recognize all of the hiccups and everything, but there's definitely still going to be some smoothing out of the processes because the processes aren't complete a pair of weeks in to the school year yet here. So I imagine that's going to keep continuing as well.
He's doing an excellent job considering the circumstances and everything. Nobody knows what to expect. I went to Poltley Elementary, like Kristen said on Friday, and I think everybody's doing an excellent job there considering. I just wanted to put my thoughts out there.
So Seth?
Yeah, so Seth, just to address, answer or follow up or whatever, I just, I didn't have a specific complaint or anything like that. It was just that's just something that I know we all who are trying to do education at this time, even in college level, I don't like what I'm doing. I don't like doing it how I'm doing it. It's not nearly good enough, but it's what I have to do. And, and so I know that we're all kind of stuck with the situation that we're in. So I guess I also just want to make sure that those who are going 50 extra miles in a day are getting the support they need from their administrators as well. and not just you all here, but also central office folks, that you're feeling supported as best as, you know, everyone's running around doing, again, 50 extra things. But yeah, I just wanted to make sure that all around, we're feeling like we're getting as much as we can given the situation. So that's all. But thank you all for, I'm glad to hear. I know that it's frustrating. I know that it's a lot of extra work and putting pieces in a puzzle that isn't very pretty to look at. but I appreciate all that you're doing. So thank you.
I just want to quickly add, I don't think any one of us sits here and says we've solved the puzzle or that we're kind of resting. I think it's a situation where I think each one of us, on a daily basis, meets with our staff, we're always looking at how we can improve. And I think that's the biggest thing is, while we had a model that got us into the building, we also knew that model was going to have to continue to be revisited, revamped, addressed, and I think even in a normal year, we still would have to do that, because we have to make sure that until we, go to bed every night and say that every single one of our kids is, going back to receiving a high quality education, then we have to, continue to look at what we're doing. And while we can say, okay, yeah, it looks better than the spring, doesn't necessarily mean that we're just patting ourselves on the back and saying good job, like we're done. No, we have to keep on working and making sure that every single thing has been addressed, it's been taken care of. And I think that's what makes it exhausting for all of us, and so there are a lot of hiccups, there are a lot of bumps, there are a lot of hurdles, but I said there are also a lot of solutions that we have in this group right here, and then with our teachers. And I think that's for each of us to, I appreciate the parents have been patient with us, but that doesn't mean that, because they've been patient doesn't mean they still should not advocate, for what's best for their kids. And I hope to hear from parents who, if their child's needs aren't being met, to let us know, let a building administrator know. Because that's the feedback we need, that we want as we continue to improve this model. Because quite frankly, we are going to be dealing with this in one shape or form the whole year. And so therefore we want to make sure that we don't just sit there as some schools or some areas just kind of wrote the spring off. We're not writing this year off. That this is a year that we have to, make sure that our students' needs are being met across the board, from a social, from emotional, from academic. So therefore, if they're, they said whatever feedback, please bring it to us. But so we meet at least once a week, but I talk to building administrators all the time. We're constantly looking to reshape this model and rethink what it is. And so what it looks like today might look drastically different in a week or two time, but every decision we're going to make, every change we make is going to be in the best interest of the kids. And that's what drives every single decision we're making right now, is what's best for our kids. So thanks.
Okay. With no other comments, moving on to personnel. For retirements and resignations, in your packet, you have a list of 5. Katrina, I'm just going to say the Polton Elementary music teacher, Caitlin Foley, Gregory Stiles, Leanna DeBonis, and Cody Parker. So a motion would be in order to accept the resignations as presented.
I'll make that
What?
motion.
Does anybody know that one?
Second?
I'll second it.
Okay, and what was your question, Tom?
What's up with Cody? Why is he leaving?
He took a full-time job with another company, but after we do this vote, I think we're going to speak about the opportunity to keep him on for games. So if I could have a vote of all those in favor of accepting the resignations as presented.
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Aye.
All right, motion passes unanimously. And then I don't know, Chris or Joe Harrington, who would like to speak to the Cody option.
Well, I'll let Joe talk about it, and I'll fill in if needed, if that's okay, Joe.
Sure. First of all, I'd like to thank Cody for his years of service. He was a great asset to Quarry Valley. He just moved on. He had a great opportunity that he couldn't pass up, and he had to take it. Moving forward, we are still, especially under the circumstances that we're currently in, we are still going to need game coverage throughout the year, however many games that may end up being, who knows. So he is willing to work per diem after hours for game coverage. And he would just rotate through the schools as he presently has with the position he did hold. So he's willing to do that. The going rate for an athletic trainer at game coverage is $40 an hour. It would work out to be, who knows, with soccer, because we thought we were starting today and we aren't. I'm not sure how many games that's really going to be when it's all said and done, but probably looking at a couple $1,000s for soccer season. Basketball season is up in the air, obviously. Not sure what that's going to look like, but if we were to have a full season, you're looking at about 5,000, I think, 5,000 or 6,000. And then, of course, the spring, again, up in the air, you're looking at probably 3,000 or 4,000. So you're looking at about $12,000 to $15,000 per diem for game coverage only.
Okay, and with that information, then if I could move everyone to contract recommendations, and we will discuss that in the context of contract recommendations. So the first section is professional staff. And we do have one to add on there. Chris, if you'd like to add that.
So I'm going to ask Bob Johnson to speak. This is a school nurse position for Proctor High School. So Bob, if you would briefly discuss this candidate, please.
Yeah, candidate's name is Sheila Jacobs. She would cover for Claire Molnar, who retired last spring. Claire has been filling in August and September, and she still wants to retire. Okay, she's got grandchildren she wants to visit with. Sheila Jacobs, we interviewed. We actually,
it's Mary Ellen.
I'm sorry, yeah. Mary Ellen Jacobs. I don't have the resume in front of me.
Yeah.
Mary Ellen Jacobs is one of two people that we were able to interview. There were two applicants for the position. The one applicant wanted an excessive amount of money for the position, and so we passed on her. And this individual, we checked on her references. I spoke directly with two individuals who had worked with her, and I believe I included quotes from those individuals on the recommendation that I sent forth. And in addition, there were two other references that I could not check because the hospital went out of business and the school district likewise went out of business. So I couldn't track them down. So this is the recommendation for this school year. And I don't know what else to say, Chris.
Okay, and who would like to fill in for the rate of pay for Mary Ellen and also for Arlen? Those are the two pieces that are missing on the handout.
So the rate of pay for Mary Ellen will be $23.50 an hour. And I do believe, Lewis, Arlen was going to be the sub rate, correct?
Last time we discussed, we were looking at the $13 an hour.
Correct.
That is correct. Originally, Arlen is long-term. He's working with Alex Fox in the middle school science classroom. He's covering essentially 3 days a week, and he's been with us. He's been with us for quite some time. So I would recommend Arlen for the job. There was one other applicant, I should say this, but the gentleman lives in Tennessee. And I can't imagine him relocating from Tennessee for $13 an hour.
I would just add that Arlen retired from Proctor High School as a science teacher as well. So he's back in his old classroom. So for professional staff, we have Erica Tyler for our Pulteney High School music teacher, Bradley Olson, Pulteney Elementary music, Erin Theron for horizontal move, Claire Molnar, just because we didn't have her on, so next month we'll be accepting her resignation. Mary Ellen Jacobs for the nurse at $23.50, and Arlen as a long-term sub-science at $13. A motion would be in order to accept the contract recommendations for professional staff.
I make the motion.
I will second that.
Motion by Jim, seconded by Seth. All those in favor?
Aye.
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 Motion passes. Moving on to support staff. We have Nancy Plant, Hannah, Madeline Morse, Cody Parker, Kimberly Metcalf, and Fred. Is there anyone who has a question about those recommendations? Hearing none, a motion would be in order to accept the support staff recommendations.
I'll make that motion.
Motion by Jim, second by Seth. All those in favor?
Aye.
The non-union, not administration contracts for increased consideration, I would ask to move that to executive session and move to the extracurricular. So these are all coaching or clubs within each school. And the bottom are the mentors. So are there any questions about any of the positions?
Are there any that have not started yet?
Any sport?
I guess any of the extracurriculars. We can use it as an example, sure. For example, is something like 7th, 8th grade soccer. They haven't even started practicing yet, or is everybody within practices, etc.?
I believe everyone's been practicing.
Okay.
Everybody's been practicing and on a holding pattern for games.
Okay. Thank you.
Can I just ask, why is Christy Glassdown has 2 mentor stipends? She's mentoring 2 people?
I can answer that, Lisa. Yes, she is.
Okay.
And we will have additional mentor contracts coming through the next meeting. Just folks who are either late assignments or we're still waiting on their contracts to be returned. So those will come through.
How are we determining whether you make $450 or $750 or $700 or?
We have a breakdown on the contract. So it depends on your mentee. So if your mentee is a level 1 teacher, which means that they are new to the profession, they have had a significant change in role, but those are really the 2 situations. They're either a brand new teacher or they've had a significant change in a role. Then they get a more intensive level of mentoring. So their stipend is higher for them. If your mentee is a level 2 mentee, that means that they are either in their 2nd year as a teacher or 3rd year as a teacher, that they have either had experience in a previous role and they are coming to our district for the first time or coming to our state for the first time, but they've taught for a long time in an area close to them, then they're a level 2 mentee and requiring less intensive work. So there's a lower stipend. And then the $50 difference is around training. If you were a brand new mentor this year, you might have required, you would have needed to attend a special orientation training for new mentors. And so we gave a stipend for that.
For the next meeting, or if no one else is interested, I guess it could just be sent to me. I'd just like to know how many mentors we have, how many mentees we have this year compared to last year.
I could just answer that for you. It's significantly less. I think last year we had, I don't know, a lot, and maybe 50 new teachers or 50 teachers who had mentors last year. And this year it's, I don't know, 20 something.
We had
I can look
50 in Quarry Valley.
No. That's all schools together.
Oh, I was going to say, wow, I missed something.
Yeah, no, all schools together. So, so we have far fewer this year.
Okay.
Give me 1 second. I'll just look up this
Maybe it's
chart
just
for
in the
you.
past they've come in little snippets rather than in such piles. So, okay.
Yeah.
You can send that to me when you find it.
Okay.
So any questions? Does anybody else have any questions? If not, a motion would be in order to approve the extracurricular recommendations.
Motion.
Jim made a motion, second by Nate. All those in favor?
Aye.
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 Thank you. Motion passes. Vacancies. Did you want to speak to that, Chris, or primarily just for information, the handout?
It's just for information, just to see what positions we still have open. We're trying to fill.
Okay.
Sorry, Lisa, this is Kristen. Just for note taking, was that Jim Mumford that moved the last motion?
Yes.
Okay.
Second by Nate.
Yep. Thanks.
Okay. And all right, update on new hires, also just informational. So Lewis, you're up.
I have, I think, 2 items for tonight. So the first one is outstanding food service balances. So in the packet was a updated list of outstanding food service balances for the full SU. And then it's also details by school with the total balance as well as the enrollment, some free and reduced data, and then some summary data of the size of the balances. So I just wanted to talk about this a little bit tonight, just to let you know a few things. So all of our schools are working under the summer food program, even though the summer is over. We'll be working under that program through December 31st. This program is beneficial because it allows all students under the age of 18 to eat both breakfast and lunch at no cost. It doesn't matter if they're free and reduced or not. It also qualifies for remote students, homeschool students, students attending other schools. It's open to all students in the districts for both breakfast and lunch. It also provides higher reimbursement rates, and it also provides more flexibility in the meal patterns, which makes it easier for the food service to produce the meals. So because we'll be working under the summer food service program until December, there'll be no further charges from now until January. So all of these balances shouldn't change between now and January, except with the exception of any payments that we receive. All of these balances were accrued prior to March, and some of them are months older than March. Some of them have been here for even years. So we're looking at balances that are almost 9 months old or 8 months old at this point, and at the earliest, and up to two years for some of them. So I had thrown the idea out to Lisa about bringing this to the board to see if the board would be interested in writing off all food service balances and starting from scratch in January. A clean slate, no balances for students. A lot of these balances are uncollectible, and I just feel it kind of wipes the slate clean and makes it easier for us to move forward with this.
Let's do it.
Thoughts from the board?
I say let's start clean. January 1st.
Louis, what were the collection efforts for these?
So all of the collection efforts are done by the schools themselves. We do have a procedure in place with certain thresholds, and at each threshold, the school is supposed to follow a different step. So for the smaller balances, they can send home notes or an email, and then as the balance gets larger, they're supposed to be reaching out to the families either by phone or in-person visits or letters sent home to the parents. We've talked about these food service balances quite a bit over the last few years. Anywhere from how do we try to collect to what other steps we want to take. The board wasn't in favor of taking any further steps involving small claims courts or taking any negative impact to students or families. So really, it's been hard for the schools to try to collect without just. I mean, the only thing they can do is send a letter or call or meet with them, but there's nothing that we've been willing to take away from the family or the students. I can just to give you an update on the totals. So these balances were as of the end of July that were in your report. I did run updated balances as of this morning, and the total for Quarry Valley is at $11,131.
I do have a question. You hear stories like in the news, people paying off lunch debts for school. Are we allowed to take donations like if something happened? Like if somebody offered to pay it?
Yes, it's been done before. People have sent in a check and said to pay off either certain pre-pools accounts or pay off some balances of people's accounts that can't afford it. We have received donations in the past, and we've.
I think we should send a letter out to everybody that owes us money to let them know what the balance is right now, and then go from there. But they should know that they owe us money. I know they already do, but.
What is the direction the board would like to take here?
Louis, this is Kristen. I just have a quick question about the table.
Okay.
Just remind me what FR percentage is again?
Free and reduced percentage. Okay. So that's the percentage of students that are free and reduced compared to the overall population of the school.
Right. Okay. Thank you.
Louis, what's the advantage to your department if we were to write these off and start with a clean slate January 1st?
No real advantage to my department. I mean, all the collection efforts are done by the schools, so it's the schools that are sending continuous letters or phone calls or emails to the same people who are refusing to pay. The only thing that my department does is pretty much just summarize. I mean, I accumulate the data, or my department accumulates the data and reports it out to you, reports it out to the schools, and then at the end of the year, I have to do a journal entry to move it to accounts receivable. But the main work is at the school level.
Lisa, this is Kristen Whitman. I'm in support of letting it off, but I wonder, as Lewis had mentioned, right now, a lot of families are getting free breakfast and lunch, and maybe it's worth, if each of the schools are responsible for reaching out and the work to contact these families, what if each school sent out some sort of notice saying, we have this debt, we're looking for donations, and give it a try before we sort of write it off in January, and just see if maybe we can get some donations if people are feeling more generous during this time or would like to contribute, since maybe they are getting some free lunches that they weren't before.
Yeah, and I agree with that too. I mean, just make it more public and maybe somebody will just make a donation.
Kind of another real quick thought just popped in my mind. Is there any way to tie this to athletic eligibility? Bob's shaking his head.
You can't be punitive.
What does
with
that
this stuff.
mean? Punish someone because they didn't pay
Nothing
for it?
can be.
It can't be punitive stuff.
Yeah. All right.
And that's been
and that's probably why we basically don't do anything. Right?
Can I just say, if we're gonna ask for a donation, can we do it across the SU? Because I'm a little uncomfortable asking my proctor community just for a donation to cover lunch expenses that someone didn't pay. I think it would have to be more of an SU approach versus a building. I have no problem calling folks who owe me money individually. However, to ask for a donation from others that have already paid their bills, I'm not feeling comfortable doing that.
Can I make a recommendation? Just the fact, if we are going to ask building administrators to try to recoup some of these expenses, that we don't vote on waiving fees on January 1st, because building administrators better do it quick before this goes public, because once the public hears that there's a chance that January 1st is going to be wiped clean, many of our families will probably sit there and say, I'm not going to pay. So it's just, if we're going to ask building administrators to, try one more round of collection efforts, that we really hold off on waiving these fees until a later date and make a decision at a later date.
So is the direction of the board to building administrators to send out, make a call or send out invoices to each of their families that are delinquent?
We might as well keep trying until the end of the year.
Okay. Is that a consensus by the board?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay. So building administrators will send letters or make calls in order to decrease the outstanding food service balances within their school. As well as, I guess, and I'm not exactly sure how you would do that, how building administrators will do this, but I guess if you want to solicit donations for maybe, I don't know, within
Lisa?
your building or something like that.
Yeah, Lisa, I think the timing is critical here. If you're going to ask for donations, you need to precede it with letters requesting payment of outstanding fees first, and then you ask for donations. You do them simultaneously, nobody's going to send any money in.
Okay, so it appears the consensus of the board is that building administrators should send out letters or make calls to those within their buildings that are delinquent for food service. And we will review this again at the December meeting.
That sounds good to me. Yep.
Okay. All right, so the next item is the SRO officer. The contract was included in the packet. So in the past, we haven't had a written contract with the Sheriff's Department. This is new for this year. We did have an increase in costs. They increased the cost from $35 an hour to $42.50 per hour from last year to this year. And the reason for the cost increase that they're quoting is just an increase in cost on their end. And this is the cost that's needed to cover all of the officers' costs, wages, benefits, and vehicle. So we have $42,000 budgeted for this year. And based on the cost of the contract, it's estimated that it's going to cost approximately $52,000 for the year, and that's based on 175 school days at $7 an hour, or at 7 hours a day. Just so that we had this position in place for the start of the school year, this contract was signed and submitted, but we do have the ability to cancel it if needed with 30 days notice.
I guess just real quick first question. Are there any other police forces that even could supply, and have they ever been contacted with a competitive quote, et cetera?
Not that I'm aware of.
That was my question too, Louis.
I guess
does
only
does it have to be a sheriff or a police officer? Or
I mean, they would have to have jurisdiction in the town, which would only be a sheriff or a state trooper or a Pulteney constable.
Or a private security guard.
And probably not any less than $42.50 an hour, I'm guessing, on that end, you know.
Mm-hmm.
Probably more. Okay.
So the contract is currently signed. I think the big piece for us is that we need to, and maybe we want to develop a committee. Maybe that's a board member from each community and a building couple of elementary administrator, high school administrator, but to define what our expectations are for the SRO when they're in the building. I don't know this year, and this year is a very different year, but I know in past years I've been rather disappointed in the service that I believe that we're receiving.
I would not be against that idea at all, Lisa. And for example, I have no idea if there's differences in what we look for in an officer for a school, or what is looked for as a school resource officer versus a normal everyday average sheriff. But you know, things that come to mind are things like de-escalation practices of you know, people with special needs and people with different mental illnesses as well, and make sure that that's extremely well trained in.
So why don't I have Chris or Lisa kind of pull some things out about what that would look like, and at the next meeting, maybe a board member from each community, since we have such unique communities, would like to set on, for lack of a better term, I guess, an SRO committee, so that we are receiving and providing the best service to our students and community.
I wouldn't mind sitting in on that myself if
I
can.
First
I'll take that on,
volunteer.
Lisa.
Yeah, I'd like to as well.
Nate, who said that? Nate?
Yep.
Okay. All right. And so Chris or Lisa, is that something maybe we could get some kind of background information on, kind of like what the genesis of the SRO should look like, just for a starting point?
I'll do that.
Yep.
Right.
And I have a bunch of information also because we've had one for probably 12 to 15 years, and I've got a lot of information and job descriptions for that position I could bring.
Okay.
I'll work with Joe on it if that's okay. Joe?
Sure.
is that
Oh,
all right?
thanks. Yeah.
Okay, thanks.
Who would like to be the representative from West Rutland to that board or to that committee?
This is Tom. I can.
Okay, great. Nate, would you like to sit on the committee? I really don't have time, not to be, I'm not trying to seem rude, but my days are kind of packed.
Yeah, that's
Would
fine.
you, Seth? So the committee would be Nate, Seth, Tom, Joe Harrington, and then maybe one other building administrator.
I'll do it.
Okay.
I'll represent the proctors, Bob.
Okay. Thank you. I think that would be helpful just to kind of, I just think it would be helpful. So thank you all for volunteering. All right.
As long as everybody, don't mean to interrupt, Lisa. As long as everybody uses the phone, I'm not running around with a computer strapped to my head.
Well, you would still be able to call in just like this, Tom. Every meeting's like that.
As long as meetings aren't, everybody's not doing everything on the computer. I'm a little busy to
I
be
see.
checking that all the time.
All righty.
Thank you.
Yep. Louis, what else do you have for us?
West Rutland boilers is the last item. So I had conversations with Jay, and due to one of their boilers, the effectiveness and age and issues with the boilers, there's a need to either replace or severe repair of the boiler system. So, and this has been coming for the last year and a half or so. We've been going through a lot of fuel the last 2 years because of this. So we knew this project was on the horizon. So we put together some specs and we went out to bid in the Rutland Herald, and we also sent the bid to the local vendor that was currently providing service at West Rutland School. We were anticipating or hoping for a bid proposal to come in the 30 range, or not to exceed 40. Unfortunately, bad news is that the bid did come in significantly higher than that at a cost of about $85,000. And I'll let Jay fill in some of the other pieces, but this is a very time-sensitive project. Unfortunately, we have no other way to heat the building without this repair.
So I'll jump in on this, and it's a tough conversation to have as a fiscal conservative that I've got to have this. So there are currently 2 boilers downstairs below the cafeteria in West Rutland. They are equal. They both work. One works primarily one day, and then they alternate. So you get extended use out of them. And they are twins. They are mirror images of each other. What has happened over the years is that last winter we had a significant issue with both sludge in our tank, which we are getting remediated in the next few weeks. But we also started to have leaks in the basement all over the place. And we had a vendor come down repeatedly. And when you service these furnaces, you go in on the right-hand side. That is how they always get serviced. And we were getting leaks all over the place, mostly on the left-hand side that only could be accessed until you tore these things apart. So this summer, as soon as the heating season came to an end, we got a contractor in to tear the furnace apart, to take a look at it, to see what it would take to be replaced, actually repaired primarily. And I included some of those pictures in my principal's report. upon actually tearing this furnace apart, what we have discovered is an enormous amount of hard water in our lines, which is also affecting some of our kitchen equipment, has pretty much eaten away this furnace to the point where it cannot be repaired. They are willing to repair it if the board deems it, and that price was $70,000 roughly. At spending 85 gets us a brand new furnace with a full warranty, and the furnace that we currently have that's taken apart has a $10,000 burner that is still good in case the other one goes. We can actually take roughly $15,000 worth of parts from this furnace that's broken and use those as backups for the other furnace. So wherever the board goes, I hate to even come to it. We're also looking at why did this even fail? Hard water, we've actually had a company come in to take a look at what it would take to have a water softener installed for just the furnace and the kitchen, because we're getting an excessive amount of wear on our dishwasher and some of the other fixtures that are in our kitchen as well. And so this is a pretty serious infrastructure need that needs to be addressed. So right now we are running on the other furnace. That is what's providing us hot water. And today when it was so cold, it's able to take the chill off. But when February comes and it's -10 outside, that one furnace cannot maintain the building at adequate temperature. So I'm just trying to be honest and forthright with what's going on in this furnace right now.
Questions?
Yes, yes. But go ahead, go ahead.
Oh, this is Kristen. I was just going to say, so we need to spend almost $86,000 for a new one, save a little money on parts from taking what was replaced on that one and being able to use it either now or eventually on the older one. And so my question, I guess, to Lewis is, where do we come up with the money for that? Because we gotta do something.
So this would definitely be an overspend. If we committed to the project, I would sit down with Jay and evaluate the budget and see where we could have savings.
Okay, Jay, quick question. On the old boiler, was boiler chemical being used on a regular basis?
What do you mean by boiler chemicals, Seth?
Yeah, so all water going into boilers is supposed to be treated ahead of time in order to prevent all this stuff from happening. So obvious statement is that needs to be in the new setup. And listen, I'm not anywhere near an expert. I think treatment chemical can replace something like a softening operation. I might be wrong. You might need to stack them for optimal performance. Maybe one replaces the other. Also, my network connection was not great at the very beginning of the conversation. Lewis was talking about something about putting it out to bid as well as contacting other folks. And so the one quote we have, is that the only quote in existence?
Correct. We only received one bid.
Have we heard from or made to Troy Boiler Works, which is in New York in the capital region? But they are somebody that comes and works with my plant in Rutland. So they will come to the area. If we have not heard from them or contacted them, maybe we need to do that quickly. Just worst thing they can say is leave us alone.
We have not reached out to them, Seth. I was unaware of that vendor.
And then the other thing is just to make sure that we're getting quoted for the appropriate size boiler, because if it's oversized is bad, undersized is bad, and let me know if we are really scratching our heads on that, because I may be able to recruit a personal favor for someone to come help us with the calculation.
Actually, we have all of the specs from when the furnace was put in last time. So Elmer had that downstairs. So we have the exact specs that were needed.
I'm actually afraid of that, to be completely honest. So sometimes that is not meaning, and that might mean you're just replacing what you had. What you had may not be ideal, and what you had could be undersized, oversized, depending on additions. Since I'm also coming from a plant with something like a boiler that runs at about 30% efficiency because it's way oversized, and we're just, you're pouring money into that fire by doing so as well. So
I will do what the board asked me to. I just need to move on it. This is obviously out of my wheelhouse as an educational leader, but I will do what they need to do so we get some heat in this place.
okay. Louis, do you want to try to make contact with Troy Boiler Works and see if they'll come up and take a look? And then does anybody want at least a quick verification on size? I can't promise that I can get someone to come take a crack at a calculation or something, but if this person would do that, I guarantee you'd be able to give us a yay or nay about, yeah, you're pretty close, or wow, you're in left field.
It certainly sounds worth it.
I support that.
All right, I will get on that immediately as well and see if we can even come pay a visit this week. And we'll talk about that offline, about what visits even look like and all the requirements, et cetera.
Yep, and if people have questions, I'm fine with that, Seth. If people have questions, they even want to walk down and see this, I'm more than happy to entertain that as well, too, what's down there right now.
I only heard you chopping, but I think it was...
I said I would be more than happy to entertain if someone needed to go down and see this and see what we're dealing with. I'd be more than happy to entertain that and make that happen.
Okay. All right. I will, I'll let you know what I can figure out.
So this is Kristen Ross. I just want to bring up the larger point that this, obviously makes clear that we should try to, and maybe this is an SU level, but I think for our district to have our, relook at our maintenance plans so we can kind of potentially predict some of this kind of stuff, coming up. So roofing, HVAC, all of that stuff, once sort of the COVID expenditures level out. But just something to sort of think down the road so we can, look at all our buildings and have some kind of plan.
So what is the direction of the board? To have this company from Albany come and look, see if Seth's friend can come or calculate the appropriate size? And are we waiting till the October meeting? Are we holding a special meeting if Louis gets another bid? What was the reasoning? I didn't hear that piece. You're thinking 30 to 40,000 on a bid, and the bid is essentially doubled, more than doubled.
Lisa, that number came from originally when the vendor looked at it without really digging into it. So we were told this was what we thought it could be, and then it was the availability of actually getting those specific parts for this furnace to try to rebuild it. The 30 to 40 was trying to get this furnace rebuilt because we did not want to replace it.
Okay, I'm sorry. I thought Louis said he would anticipated bids coming in at 35 to 40,000.
That's correct. So based on my discussions with Jay and Elmer, and discussions that they had with the vendor, we were anticipating the bids to come in at that. But once we went out to bid, we were kind of left to whatever the proposal was. And unfortunately, what we were told before the bid process didn't line up with what the actual bid proposals were.
And that was just one company, right?
It was the only company that responded, yes.
Yeah, I think we should get at least 3 quotes.
We did reach out We did reach out and sent personal letters and phone calls to several local folks asking them to do that, and it was crickets on the other end. It is very frustrating.
Yeah, I
to
can
say the
imagine.
least.
So did we
you
try
said-
and contact the company that did Proctor when we did our upgrades?
I could not tell you who that vendor was, Lisa. I'm sorry.
Louis?
No, we advertised in the Rutland Herald and we reached out to, as Jay said, Ploufs and Jay, did you say you have other local vendors as well?
Yeah, we contacted a number of local vendors to see if they were interested, including the person that used to service it, and a couple of major contractors in the Rutland area, just to see if they'd be willing to entertain bids for us.
Okay. So we probably need to put some kind of timestamp on this here about how long we're going to continue to solicit bids. I think it would be worth our time to maybe look back in the invoices and see who did the updates for Proctor. I'm not sure, and perhaps reach out to them and see if there's any interest there. Do you remember, Christy?
Louis, was it Johnson Controls?
Well, Johnson Controls is the one that the whole project was through. I'm not sure if they subcontracted it out to somebody else. It was before I was the business manager.
Okay.
I mean, Johnson's Controls is the one who managed the project. I don't know that they
Right.
did the
Yeah,
actual
no.
installation.
They worked with Alliance Mechanical. I don't know, Jay, if you contacted Alliance.
No, I don't believe that was one of the companies that was contacted.
Yeah, they worked with Johnson Controls through our project.
I mean, based on what I'm hearing, though, it sounds almost like we need to put this back out to bid. If we're going to be reaching, we already have a bid in. If we're going to be reaching out to other people, it's almost to do it right. We should go back out to bid and invite people. The only issue is with time frame and having a boiler in place for the start of the heating season. I would think we would need to get this project started by October 15th at the latest in order to have a working boiler in place by at least November 1st.
Right now, I'm not going to pressure anybody. I'm just giving folks information. The vendor that did give us the bid said that they anticipated, if this were approved tonight, they would start this project around the 15th. I'm just putting that out there as information. We have no agreement, obviously, with them because all of this is pending board approval.
So they wouldn't even start till October 15th anyway?
Correct, because they have not ordered the parts because nothing has been approved yet.
Right, okay. Yeah, I mean, I agree that we should definitely go out for more bids, except we gotta hurry up. So, I don't know how realistic that is. I mean, how, another week?
What was the cost?
85,000.
What if we give it a week to see what everybody can come up with and meet next week and talk about it, because it is a kind of a big issue, you know?
Yeah, I was almost thinking rebid, but we got to have a special meeting real soon on it again, I think.
Yeah, I mean, you don't want to lose it
Max.
October 15th. You don't want to lose that October 15th date. I get it, but
If we're gonna
a lot of money.
If we're gonna rebid, I think we need to get that process started immediately tomorrow and get it advertised and reach out to some of these other vendors. This way, we could have a bid proposal coming in somewhere around the 10th. Give people about 2 weeks to do walkthrough and put their proposal together.
I mean, it would definitely.
How many bid it?
We only received one bid the first time.
Oh my God, why?
It's that time of the year.
And just so that you're aware, if we get less than 3 bids, we have to go to the state for approval. to accept the sole bidder, and that process has already been done. We did follow the bid law, and so we did receive approval to go with that bid if we choose to. But we're definitely able to rebid it if we choose to.
Louis, did you have more people come look, or was it really only the one?
We had one other company call, but I don't know if they did a walkthrough, but they did not submit a bid.
Okay,
That is correct.
Yeah, I'm sorry. I'm sorry. I missed it. What is the matter with the boiler that's there now?
Jim, it has been eaten up so bad by the soft water. There is huge pitting between the cast iron panels, and it leaks like a sieve.
So that's gone, and that's not that old either. It's only 16 years old.
Correct. And the vendor that came and looked at it said it was all caused by hard water. It was not due to lack of maintenance. We had the boiler inspector down there just last week, and he also agreed it was not due to lack of maintenance. It's due to being eaten from the inside out by the water that was being pumped into it.
Gotcha. Well, we spent over $500,000 on those boilers 16 years ago. There was 2 of them put in. It was $500-something thousand. So if we can get one replaced for 85, I think we should go with it. I don't think we should wait. I think we need to move forward and quickly.
That is a new perspective.
Yeah.
Yeah, definitely new perspective.
We don't have time. It's already getting cold. And we put it out in the paper. They choose not to bid it. Somebody gave us a price. I think we should go with it. I think it's late already. I'm worried.
Yeah, you put it out in the paper and nobody gets a hold of you. I mean, you got to put initiative and get a hold of other people. I mean, we need other prices.
You're not going to get any better than that. I'm telling you right now.
The reason
Everybody's busy. Everybody's busy out there. Everybody's workload has been compressed because of COVID. So everybody is busy and really busy, and that tells you something when they don't even bid it.
This is the wrong time of year to go for a furnace, but
That's right. It's the wrong time of the year to go out looking for it.
Jim, as far as hard water, we don't have hard water, do we?
I don't know.
I don't believe we do.
Has the water ever been tested to see if it's hard water?
I'm pretty
Yes,
sure.
Number one, you also got to look into, if it is hard water, you better start looking into your pipes that go into the cafeteria for hot water, because those things will plug.
That is exactly what we have done, and that is exactly what we have found upon the testing.
So what is the pleasure of the board?
Well, I think we should let Seth explore his option like he brought up and maybe meet again Thursday, give it a couple days because, it's high priority, and keep that company that's going to do it October 15th, let them know that. We'll let them know by Friday. I don't know what everybody else thinks about that, but
yeah, and as far as
October 15th anyway.
Having too much boiler is a good thing. Too much boiler is a good thing if you zero it in. Then you're chewing up no juice. But having too much boiler not zeroed in is not good. Too much.
If you had time, you'd have to get a boiler engineer to drop the specs and the size of the building, do it properly. But you don't have the time right now.
We don't have the time. We do not have the time. We need to move forward.
Put it in within 2 or 3 days. It's going to take a couple weeks anyway to get it right. They got to pull the old one out.
So
it's not.
are
time to order the product.
Are people opposed to waiting until Thursday and scheduling a special meeting before the SU board meeting to see if Seth's person can look at it and assess the sizing.
Yeah, I can probably get the answer about whether that's even feasible tomorrow.
And if not, then Thursday we could vote one way or the other.
Isn't the SU board meeting Wednesday?
Oh, Wednesday? I don't know.
Wednesday.
Yes, it's Wednesday.
Okay. Well, we could still have a special meeting Thursday. It's not.
And
gonna
would Seth also still be reaching out to the company in Albany, or is that Lewis doing that?
So yeah, let me just, from my perspective, I don't think I should do that. I think if we want to reach out to the company in Albany, that should come from central office. However, any reaching out was done. What I'm going to do is talk to an engineer who I work with, who has done this exact task at our plant, and what I'm hoping he may be able to do for us is to at least be able to make some calculations quickly to verify size of boiler needed, and may have just a real rough idea on some costs, that we've had some things quoted out too in recent times.
I hear what everybody's saying, and it all has merit. However, time is of the essence here, and I don't want the school to be left out in the cold.
Well, Lewis,
also has tons of merit.
Lewis, you'd have to let him know that we'll let that company know Friday after we have the meeting, and they said October 15th. You said they couldn't start it. I mean, is that going to be too late to give them an answer?
I'm not sure. I'm not sure what the time is to get the product in. That's.
Oh, you said you're waiting on the board to give an answer for these guys. I mean, is by letting them know Friday going to be too late, or are they going to be okay with that?
I don't know the answer to that.
I'm telling you right now, a lot of stuff you can't even get out there. Okay? Some things you cannot even get.
Yep. That is also.
These are all my
absolutely true.
experiences, okay? I'm just putting it out there because I've been down this road, and
I'm with you, Jim.
I'm telling you right now, the way things are right now, you don't have time to fool around. I'm telling you.
Exactly. We're going to get engineers and everybody about whatever.
Yep. It's just
You can't wait too long. You're going to be in the thing
So
is the next
someone
is
make
boiler.
a motion.
I'm going to make a motion to accept the bid and move forward.
Is there a second to Jim's motion?
I'll second it.
And I'd like to find out if Rutland has hard water or not. I don't believe we do. So I'm wondering if it's something from the boiler to the road.
Well, I would certainly say if those boilers are only 16 years old and we're going to, I don't know, we'll wait to see what the vote is, but there needs to be some kind of procedure in place. So they certainly should be lasting longer than 16 years.
Exactly.
I'm going to do a roll call vote because I think I may have some that do not agree. So the current motion is to accept the bid of $85,000 for the purchase and installation of a boiler in West Rutland School. Seth.
And they are to remove the other boiler according to their specs.
But not the good part.
That's part of the bid.
Okay.
Right.
Yeah, it's just.
Seth.
I guess I'm going to say no.
Kristen Whitman.
I'm going to abstain.
Oh my gosh. Tom.
I'm in, but I don't want to add all the stuff for the hard water to find out if it's where that problem is. But yes.
Yeah. I think that's a separate piece, no matter what we decide to do. That has to be diagnosed. Art.
Yes, I made the second the motion.
Oh, okay. Kristen Ross.
No.
Jim.
Yes.
Nate.
I'm gonna say no.
Sarah.
Yes.
So we have 1, 2, 3 no's, 1, 2, 3, 4 yeses, and an abstain.
Did you count you, Lisa?
I'm going to abstain.
Okay.
2 abstentions, 4 yes, and 3 no. So the motion passes.
So just for my notes to be clear, Louis, the bid is actually 85,796, correct? That's the amount.
Let me just confirm that.
Yep. That's what it says in the paperwork, but you were
Yes.
saying 85,000, which is rounding down, so I just wanted to make sure that there wasn't something I was missing.
No, that is correct. The amount that's on the paperwork.
Perfect, thank you.
So Louis, I would hope that the second piece of this is having some assessment, and I don't know who in the Rutland area or how you're doing this, to 1, test the water, and 2, decide what we need to do. If water softener needs to be put in, or what the treatment needs to be, so we don't have this happen again.
We've been putting an additive in those boilers for the last 7 or 8 years. Every year it's like $3,000. And that's supposed to preserve it and keep it running and all this. And obviously something's not working.
What that does, those chemicals keep it from rusting on the inside.
Apparently not these chemicals.
We
yeah,
need to
wrong ones.
then we need to just speak to whoever this contractor is, and there needs to be some kind of plan going forward. If there needs to be a water softener installed, or the chemicals obviously aren't working, but Jay or Louis, that needs to be the next piece, and I think we need to have a report back on that at the October meeting.
Can I make one comment, Lisa?
Yeah.
Jay got dealt a bad hand here. This is nothing to do with Jay and the surprise for the furnace and everything. He's walking into all this, so this is nothing to do with Jay's.
No. I'm not alluding to that. I'm just saying.
I just wanted to put that out there for the board. This is nothing Jay did or whatever. He walked into this bad deal.
Just going forward, so that as we're investing infrastructure, that if we need to do something because we have hard water or whatever that is, that if we're going to expend $85,000 and we need to spend, let's say, $5,000 to put in a water softener, let's be smart.
Oh, I'm with you. I'm trying to get out there. This isn't. Jay kind of walked into this.
Okay. Anything else, Louis?
That's all I have.
Okay. Any other? So we need to have an executive session, I guess, about the contracts. So if we could have a motion to move into executive session at 8.
I make a motion to go in executive session for contracts.
I'll second it.
All right, all those in favor?
Aye.
We can excuse everyone except Louis and Chris.
Have a good night.
Thank you.
Good night.